So welcome CIS 157, that's for the recording. And the first part today, I'm going to cover, I already brought up my NetBeans project and empty shell. And first, I'd like to answer a question from Mike asking about method parameters. As you can see, in the main method, we mentioned it earlier, that it doesn't just start, it um accepts some parameters. If we add our own method to this little class, for example, public static, since we're not instantiating any objects, public static void print data, right? And we could pass a double value and say this is our value, right? And inside the method, we could do something like system dot print dot out dot print line, and just say something like the value is, and type it, right? Something extremely simple like this. And if I want to make a call into print data from my main method, I could declare a double rate equals 0.85, whatever that means, as an example, and make a call and say print data rate, right? Pass rate as the data that I want to print. So compile often so that it's should be a good practice to compile your code as soon as you can. As soon as you have something meaningful, make sure you compile it so you don't get less syntax errors and less frustrating movements later on. So if I save this and try to run it, obviously in the output window we should see something that gets printed. So it says the value is 0.85, which was expected. Let me increase the size of this, as we usually do, right? So here we have it. So the question was, what about this double value? What is it? Is it a local variable? We name it a formal parameter to the method, but what is it? What is the essence of it? So let me explain it perhaps by using a little demonstration of using paint, which we are going to need anyway, probably later on. So every call, and in our case, first main, right? Main is invoked. In every call that happens, each method requires a placeholder for local variables. So if that's the case, this temporary area to store local variables in memory is called a stack frame. Each method call comes with an expense of organizing this stack frame, which will host local variables. So if then I declared a variable rate, I'll just abbreviate it to like R, lowercase r, the stack frame of main becomes a placeholder of that variable. Then what I do on the next line is that I actually make a call to print data, which has its own responsibility to print something, to print the value on the screen. All right, so what happens is that the compiler compiled this code in such a way that the copy of R, which is the double value, which occupies like 8 bytes in memory, it gets pushed on the stack in the temporary area and stays there until the call really takes place. When the call takes place, print data method right here organizes its own stack frame, which is the size of it is calculated in such a way that it's enough to store all the data that print data will require at runtime. That, of course, includes magically includes this value variable. So right here, this value 0.85 stored as a double number is stored as just a double number, but its name will be value. So the local parameter becomes just another local variable, but the only trick is that its value is pushed on the stack before the method call takes place. So magically, it appears to be in scope of print data. So the answer is yes, function parameter is a local variable. The only tricky part of it is that its initialization takes place when we make a call. When we make a call and pass the actual value, by the way, this thing is called actual parameter, whereas this thing is called a formal parameter. So we could be making calls to this function from different places and passing different values to this function, to this method, and say, next time I want to pass 0.5, just a hard-coded number, right? So every time I make this call, the game will begin over and over again. As soon as I return from print data, right? This particular stack frame destroyed, and we return entirely to back to the main function. As soon as we make a call back into print data, this stack frame is reproduced. So every call comes with an expense of constructing this frame and passing the parameters. But every time the call takes place, the whole game starts from the scratch, and from the value has to be passed. Each time it's a unique value, and the local variable is initialized, and magically it appears in scope of print data. Does that answer your question, Mike? All right. So local parameter is a local variable, but its initialization is taking place during the method call. When the call is made, every time a brand new value is pushed, and it's being then used inside the function. All right. So hopefully that answers your question. So let's start. Let me actually record this.